Hi, welcome back. In this episode, we will look at the different ways of deploying our Angular application. Uh, so far, when we develop an Angular application, we are starting a development server. So the development server is 4200. So assume that this is our development server, and we load the Angular application from a development server, and we make a call to our backend, the Nest application over here, which is running on localhost, I believe 8080 or 3000. I can't remember, but the development server is 4200. In this mode, right, Angular is actually being served from another domain. In this case, for example, Acme, and it is making a cross-origin request over to MUM. So let me illustrate this. This setup. As usual, before we begin, let us create a branch. I'm going to call this part 27. Okay, and then I will change to my front end. And what I'll do is I will start my Node backend. The okay. So while that is starting, what I'll do is just to make this thing clearer, I will build the Angular application for production. Okay, okay, I didn't put a dash dash prod, but no, we'll just build the Angular application. So this server is running on port 8080. I'll pause the I'll pause the video, and then I'll come back when it is finished finished compiling. Okay, so the Angular application has finished compiling. What we do is this: the binary, if you can call that, is in here. We just start a simple HTTP server, and I'll start it on port 3000 so that it doesn't clash. Oops. Okay, looks like I haven't installed HTTP server. So let me install HTTP server. Oops. Okay, so let me start again. HTTP server minus P. I'll start on port 3000. Okay, so it's now running on two different servers. Angular is being served from two different servers. Localhost 3000, and we are accessing the server from another. We are accessing the server, the backend on another server from another domain. So this is the setup. So in this setup, because our Angular application is being served from another domain, this is a cross-origin request. And so for cross-origin requests, the server must return cause header. We have covered this in a previous episode. In this episode, what we want to do is this. We want to cover, okay, I call this thing where we're doing cross-origin the standalone mode, okay? So in this episode, what we're going to do is this. We are going to serve Angular from the same domain. So in other words, we're going to compile Angular from the same domain. What the step we're going to do is that we're going to compile Angular. We're going to put it into our Nest application. When we make a request to Nest application, the Nest application return to us the Angular application, and then from our Angular application, we make API calls to back to the Nest application. So this is since the Angular application is being served from the same domain as the XHR call. This is the same origin. Okay, so I call this mode the embedded mode, where Angular is embedded the into the server. So let's look at doing this. By default, when we create, this is the mode that we are using. Okay, so let's create the second, the embed mode. I will start the application. So let me just run through a few things first. This is where the API call is. Notice that that our call is here, and actually the HTTP request is hard coded into the application, which is actually not very good. We're going to refactor this a little bit to make sure that our application will support both of this mode, the standalone mode and the embed mode. And I'll start by creating. Okay, so let me backtrack a little bit. I'm going to show you the embed mode first, and then we will sort of make it work also for the standalone mode. So what I'll do is this: I'll create a variable here. I'll call it server. Call it server path, and then this currently is going to be blank. And what I'll do is this: I will refactor this. I'll put this like this: server path. Okay. So currently, since the server path is blank, this will just be reduced to /API/kbots. I'll do the same thing for this guy. And I'll do, oops. Do the next one. Okay, so those are the five URL reference, uh, the resource reference, right? So currently this is blank. Okay, so this server is blank. So let's see what happens. I will now go and oops, I'm supposed to start this here. So let me stop this guy. I'll start this here, and I'll start the backend first. And then I'll do an ng serve from here. Okay, so let's try running this again. We go here, move this to here. So now it's we are back to the development server. So remember that we have changed all the references to have the server path in front, okay, with a slash, right? So we'll go 4200, okay. And now if we click on this, notice that we're actually getting an error. So let me make this a bit bigger. Okay, notice that we're getting a bit bigger because we start our server, we start our resource with a slash. Remember, server path is blank. We start with a with a blank. So it's just the reference is just /API. If you don't have any if you don't have any HTTP in front, what the browser will do is the browser will append the localhost 4200 in front of this. In other words, this call is actually going back to the development server, which is clearly incorrect. Okay, so what Angular allows us to do, Angular has this feature. What we really want to do is this: anytime when the server references /API/kbot, during development, we want it to direct all the calls over to our over to our server, which is running on localhost port port 8080. What Angular has is a it's a proxy. It's a proxy setup for developing this type of application, the embed mode type of application. So during development, what you can do is this: in Angular, you can set up a proxy, and you can configure this proxy to intercept HTTP calls. So any calls that go to /API, in this case, in our case, for example, so this is our development server case, will be redirected by the proxy to the localhost port 8080 over here. Okay, so the way to set up this proxy is actually very simple. It is a configuration file, and we will do this here. So let me stop this Angular file. Okay, there are two ways of doing it. One is to create a file called whatever you want to call it, .json file. The .json file allows you to have one proxy, one setup, and then there's another one, which is multiple proxies. If you've got multiple proxies, you can create a proxy config.js file. Okay, I'm going to use the JS file simply because it's just easier to write, than doing the JSON file. So I'm going to do this mode. To do that, you create a file, call it anything you want. I'm going to call it proxy config. Okay, and then what you do is you just create module module exports, and then you pass in an array. Every array is an object of this type. The first one is the context. Context is what is it that we want to intercept. In our case, we want to intercept any call to /API. You can have more than one here since it's an array. Okay, and the target is HTTP localhost 8080. We're going to say the connection is not secure. In other words, we are not running HTTPS. So it's false. So for development, it's okay. And also, I want to enable debug. I can see my call, so it's log level. So that's the setup. So now what we do is this: to run, to to use a proxy in the development server, you go ng serve, and then you go proxy config, and then you give the proxy config file. That's the file. Okay, so notice if you set this up correctly, you will see this line here that says all the calls are directed to. Oops, go back. All the calls are directed to /API. Okay, and now you notice that the first call is actually gone across. Let's do this again. So this is the development server now. So if we click this, notice that it's now working again. The reason is because the call to Fred is being redirected to localhost 8080, which is coming up here. So notice if I click this, right? Notice another call that goes back. Okay, so you can use this way. You can use a proxy to develop applications that is being served, Angular application that will eventually be served from your either from your Express, or from, in this case, from Express, or a Java servlet, Java web application, or .NET, in our case, a Nest application. So we go and develop, and then we have finished development. Okay, so now we have finished development. What we want to do is this: we want to now get our Angular application to be served from Nest. Okay, so let's now get Nest to serve our application. Nest allows to get Nest to. So Nest is actually is a framework for developing API. Right. So if you want Nest to serve static files, what you need to do is, or static files, what you need to do is that you need to install the this module. Okay, the serve static module, which we will now do. We'll go npm I. So we'll install this into the Nest backend. So let me stop the Nest first. Okay, and the Angular. So if you develop this and we have finished development, so let me just do this one first. We have finished installing. Now we will go and configure the Nest, the serve static module. We want to make this. We want to make the Angular files as a configurable parameter. So what I'm going to do is this: in Nest, I'm going to have a parameter to say where to load the Nest application, where the Angular application from. So under my arcs here, let's create another configuration option called client path. Okay. And then the type is a string, and the default is just blank. Okay, like this. So what I'll do is this. Now we can get the configuration here. Cons. We will say client path. Up B client path. Okay, and I need to do all this before I actually start the Nest application. I need to pass this over to my Nest application. Okay, so what I'll do is this: I will set this variable into the environment, into the process environment uh, map, and then I'll pick this up in my module. So the way I'm going to do this is like this. I can say process, since I'm running it on Node, I can say process env, and then I'll say client path, okay, equals to client path. Okay. I will maybe just print this out here. Say if client path, then you just print out client path. Okay. So if client path is set, then we just print out client path. This is the first part where we set the client path into the environment variable. Now for the next part, we are not done yet. For the next part, you need to configure the module here. So it's going to be like this. Serve. Okay, I need to maybe import this guy. Module. Okay. So let's go back to here. Serve static module. Oops. Okay. So because I need to read this environment variable, so what I need to do is this: I need to dynamically load this so that I can run some JavaScript code. And the way I'm going to do this is like this: to import at nest static. Okay. Then say m, and then I'll just say m. So this is the dynamic way of doing the same thing. Serve module for root. Okay. So what I want to do is this: I need to configure this root path. Okay. I'll say process env, and then client path. Okay, and then I want to exclude. Okay, I want to exclude. In other words, do not serve this if the path starts with API, right? So remember the API should actually go to our controllers. Okay, go to our controllers. So that's basically it. Okay, so the way we're going to run this is like this. First thing, we'll go back to Angular, and then we will rebuild our Angular client again. Okay. So what? So okay, so that's finished building. The Angular client is here. Okay. So now, what we're going to do is this: we're going to run no, we're going to run Nest. Let me show you. I'm going to build. I'm going to build Nest. The reason why I have to build it is because I cannot run it with NodeMon. Otherwise, we need to we need to specify the NodeMon. We need to change the NodeMon, the 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 start the start script with the client path option. So I built this. So the way I'm going to run this is like this. So if you remember, our file is in here. Our our binary, our Nest binary is in here. So to run it, we go node inside of this directory, this distribution directory, and the back end source, the main. Okay, and then I can say client path. Okay, now the path to this guy, which is here, uh, which is opt tmp sandbox. Okay, neat stack front end. So this is inside the Angular directory, and then I'll go. Uh, Actually, it's home, right? Home tmp sandbox neat stack front end. Uh, this okay front end. So this is where the the file is. Okay. So now notice that the client is set from here. So this is now port 8080. So we'll go back to here. We'll switch this over to port 8080. Okay. So now this Angular application is now being served from Nest, and then everything is working as before. Okay. So we have shown you this path. Okay. The embed mode. Okay, by just simply changing, controlling this server path, right? So what we want to do is this: we want to allow the Angular. Now we come back to the Angular side. We want to allow the Angular. So when you build Angular, we want to allow you to build either Angular, the Angular binary, okay, either as a standalone or as an embed mode. By default, in our case, the the Angular is in the embed mode because the server path is blank, right? So the front part here is blank, right? To actually have the cross origin, the standalone mode, all we need to do is just in on the server path, just add our server in in front of them. Okay, so the way Angular allows us to control this is to create different environment variables. When we build them or when we're doing development, we can specify what is the what are the parameters, what are some of these values that goes into building this uh, building the Angular binary, the final JavaScript file. So let me show you where to do that. So uh, so by default, in our case, by default, the when we build the Angular, uh, when we build the Angular, application, our application, by default is going to be in the embed mode because the server path is blank, right? So make it in a standalone mode, we will have to specify an environment to build, and this is what we're going to do. Inside the Angular SRC directory, there is a there is a uh, directory called environment. Okay, and so it's actually very simple. When Angular starts up, your application can actually reference this environment variable. So in other words, notice that this is the production environment, and you can add anything in here. Okay, so I'm going to make a copy of this. I'll call this standalone. Okay, then I'll go standalone, and what I'll do is this. Okay, I'll just add another variable here called server path. Okay, and the server path is whatever the server that we are referencing. If Angular were to deploy separately, let's say like if you deploy on a CDN, okay, so in our case, I'm just going to put HTTP localhost. So the server is running on 8080. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take this server path and we're going to append, you know, uh, assign this to our server path constant. So that's the first step. Okay. The second step is to let Angular know about this environment. And to do that, you need to add a few lines or well, some configuration into angular.json. The first place to go is to go into the build thing here and notice that under configurations, there is this production. Okay, what this one means is this: when you actually run a build, it will replace the environment file. This is the canonical file. You replace this environment file with the prod file. Notice I've shown you the prod file, right? So what your Angular application do is this: you just reference this to pick up any environment variable. So in our case, I'm just going to leave the production environment alone, and I'll make a copy of this production. Let me just see where this goes. Okay, so this is the thing. Oops. Production. Get back to production here. Okay, so I'm going to copy this guy. Maybe, we may not need to copy everything, but I'm just doing everything and, all the configuration. And then I will call this standalone. Spell it correctly. Standalone. Okay. So, and the file that we're going to reference, the environment file we're going to reference is standalone. It's called standalone. Right? So when we build with the standalone configuration, it's going to replace standalone with this. This is for building. We also need one during development. So we will go to serve. Okay, so notice is the configuration here. So we just copy this tree file, this tree line. Okay, and we'll do the same thing. You change this to standalone. And this thing here, when we build, we'll use the standalone configuration. Okay. Right, so the way this is going to work is like this. So let's say now I want to I want to start up the development server in the standalone mode. In other words, treat Angular, uh, append append the HTTP localhost, or 8080 to use the environment dot standalone ts file. So the way we do this is like ng-serve, okay, configuration equals to standalone. Oops. Okay, so don't worry about that. Okay, while that is building, what we'll do is this: we'll now go back to our Angular application, and then we are going to say this. Okay, so we are going to first of all import the environment. So we don't import the standalone, we import environment. So remember, in our angular.js file, the environment variable is a canonical file, and we pick either production or standalone, and that one will replace the environment file, right? That one. So this is environment. Okay. So now we can say this. Okay, we can say environment server. We do like this. Server path. So if it has the server path, we use the server path. Okay. Otherwise, we append the server path. Otherwise, we set it to blank, right? Okay, I think I messed up there somewhere. So let me just correct it here. I forgot the comma. Yeah, I forgot the comma. Okay. Yes. Okay. So now, so while that is building, let's quickly run through what we have first. Now we have the following configuration. We can build Angular as a standalone. So if you build it as a standalone, then when you run the backend, you need to enable CORS. Or if you build it in an embedded mode, you just do ng-build, embed. Of course, you can go prod here, right? And then if you do this, then you need to when you start the backend, you need to specify where to serve the Angular uh, where where to serve the Angular files from. Of course, you can also have in here. You can also add dash dash minus CORS as well. You can enable API support as well. So let's see. Okay, so this is now finished. Let's go back. So this is running in the development server. This is 4200. Let's go back to our 4200. Okay. So now Oh, so that's because I didn't enable calls on my server. Let's pause. If we do this again, right? So, so now, if you notice that we have not enabled the proxy config, the configuration is being picked up, uh, and since we have started this the development server uh, with the using the standalone mode, so the calls the API the local host 8080 is appended to our server path, and then when we make the call, so let me do this again. So when we make the call, okay, this is the part. This part is coming is read from the environment dot standalone. Okay, so this is the first scenario where we built it with the standalone. So the second option here, I've shown you this one. So if you, so to build that's in production. To build the final one, you just go ng build. You let you specify the configuration. The second one is this one, okay, where you just start Angular. Oh, sorry, this one you need to start it with the. Uh, you need to start. Sorry, I need to start it uh, with the proxy config. Okay, and let's go back to our Angular application. And now notice that the calls are getting proxied across. Okay, so this is the end of this episode. In this episode, I've shown you how you can build the Angular application two ways, either as a standalone, which is being served from a different domain, or in an embed mode, which is what I call embed mode, where the Angular is being served from from our Nest backend. Okay? So until next time, stay safe.